Hi guys, come on in. We're just gonna wait for a few people. Just gonna pop some messages across in the side there. If you can take a look just as I'm going. A couple of you now. Just gonna give it a minute or two. Just whilst I do this. So I just popped a couple of messages in the side there. Just letting you know what to happen if the stream disconnects, or if you can't hear me, or if you've got any questions, pop them in the side there as well. So I'll give it a minute or two, give a couple of people some time to arrive because we've only just started. Hello Faye, hello Evie in the side. So give it another minute or two. So I hope you're all managing to stay safe still, enjoying your time at home away from school, but I can only imagine you're kind of ready to go back now after such a long time off. But hopefully things get back to normal soon. If you're just showing up, I can see a few more of you in the side. So hi Noah. So if you can just read those messages in the side, just lets you know what to do if you can't hear me, or if the stream goes in the side for me to take a look at, and I'll get those answered for you today. So I can see my connection's a little bit unstable, so hopefully you can still hear me, see me properly. So we're going to get going in a second. So just whilst we're waiting for as many people as possible, have another reminder, we're all working through these at the moment, our blue one in particular and our grey one there. But our grey one is the most, our blue one is the most important one. So a reminder of those two books, we want to be working through those, and we want to be picking those up if possible, just to be working through it, especially during this time. It's a lot easier to be taking a look at the book and working your way through than it is to be looking at chunks of it in the videos that we've been doing. But I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to follow in the videos if you don't have the book, so hopefully you're okay with all of that there. So be thinking if there's any questions at all, just pop them in the side for me and I'll get those answered for you. So I've got a couple of things I wanted to talk about. So I had, see if I connect again. There we go. So we're looking at putting a pack together for parents to help parents understand the notation and the reading of the music to help your kids out and help you all out whilst you're learning. So tomorrow I'm going to be putting a video together. It will probably just be from my home here in not my studio space, but it'll just be a little video which will go out to all of the parents, and it'll be a guide for all of the parents for understanding all of the topics that we've covered so far. With everything we've done in the schools, and everything that's on the videos. Hi Connor in the side. So that pack will be going out to parents hopefully on Monday. At the same time, you will get your next lot of lessons. So parents, if you can take a second to have a look at that video, it will help you understand all of the notation and everything that you'll be finding in the videos. So if your children have any questions about anything like that, hopefully you'll be able to help them out at home a little bit more. I understand it can be difficult if they're learning something that you've not learned before. And it can be hard to help them along if they do need any help at all. So I'll be putting that together. It'll just go over the basics of reading music and drum kit notation. So if you have any questions on it, you can be helping them at home. You can be following the lessons along at home yourself as well. It'll give you something to do. I know some of you are probably still working over this time, but some of you might not be. That'll give you something to do as well if you need it. So I will be putting that together, like I said, just from my kit at home. We'll just cover what we in our lessons refer to as teas, coffees, Coca-Colas, and our rests. I'll be going over those and what all of those mean. So it'll be a help to all of you to watch the lesson. I'll put it in with your usual lesson, so it won't replace anything. You'll get your lesson for the week, and you'll get this little notation, reading music recap as well, but that's for everybody to look at, students and parents. So hopefully that will help you all along a little bit, kind of refresh a couple of things that you might have forgotten and you might not want to ask questions on because you feel like, oh, well, maybe I should be comfortable with this and I've just forgotten, maybe it'll come back to me. But everything I'm going to cover and understand what we're doing. I love drumming. We all love drumming. Drumming is the best instrument, definitely the best instrument of them all. So like I said, any questions, pop them in the side there. So what else do I have to talk about? So I've had a lot of questions again about sticks, practice pads, electric kits, acoustic kits. What kit do I buy? What's the best one to go for at the moment? So I'll start with sticks, because I know most of you do have sticks now, but some of you still don't. Some of you are just practicing on your legs, doing around the drums like this, and using 4 different ends of your legs, which is an effective way of practicing still, but we want to be progressing and practicing in the best way possible. So if we can be, so sticks can be actually quite a difficult thing to be looking at if you don't know what you're looking at, because there's thousands of different companies that make drumsticks. There's all of these different numbers and letters that say what size they are, but which size do we need to get? So a basic guide to it, there's 3 big companies which I would say to go for. That's ProMark, Vic Firth and Veta. Those are the 3 biggest names in drumsticks. Meinl have also just started making drumsticks as well, and those are really, really good. I've tried some of those. But those are generally the brands that you want to stick with. I play ProMark drumsticks. I have for the last maybe 8 years, and I haven't played anything else. This is just a personal choice. I don't think they're any better than Vic Firth or Veta or Meinl, but personally, this is just what I go for. But any of those that I've just said, that's the best companies to go for. Those are going to last you the longest because they use the best quality wood and they have the best production process as well. So as far as sizes go, there's all kinds of signature models, and there's all different kinds of numbers and letters that we might not know what they mean. Basically, you want to be going for a 5A. 5A is average. That's where everybody starts. Whenever anybody comes into one of my lessons and I lend them a pair of sticks, that's what size sticks you'll get, is a 5A. So those are just average size sticks. So if you're finding that 5As, or maybe you're one of my younger students and you're finding that 5As might be quite big still in your hands, you much at all, and they're going to feel the right size in your hands. But 5A or 7A for the really, really young students are mine. Those are probably your best options. Those of you that are older, I use 5B sticks, which are a size up from 5A, but I wouldn't really recommend going into that area for any of you that are my students, because none of you are really that size yet. So 5A, 7A is going to be perfect. Like I said, ProMark is what I recommend. That's what I've used for the last however many years. But Vic Firth, Veta, Meinl, you can get loads of British-made ones. So there's a new drumstick company in London, London Drumstick Co, I believe. They're making really good things, but ProMark is what I'm going to recommend to you also. ProMark 5A if you're going to be buying sticks. I don't have a drum kit yet. So you can build a very, very effective kit out of a cajon. So you can get a bass drum pedal that attaches to a cajon. If you're watching this now and you're like, what is a cajon? I don't know what a cajon is. A cajon is a little wooden box that you sit on, and inside is snare wires, similar to what you find underneath your snare drum. Inside is snare wires, so when you hit the top of the box whilst you're sat on it, you get a snare sound, and if you hit the very middle of the box lower down, it's away from the snare wires and you get more of a bass drum sound. So if you've got one of those, like you say at the side, you can get a cajon bass drum pedal, and what that is like a cable driven bass drum pedal so that you can sit on top of the cajon, have the bass drum beater hit the middle of the cajon. So if you have a cajon, you could then get snare and hi-hat. Yeah, I know the network's not that good. I'm trying to improve that every week. Hopefully you can hear and see me. If it dip out, it should come back in, or you can come back to this video if you've missed anything. It should have recorded nicely, even if it hasn't. A perfect option for practicing. So you'd have a very similar setup to this here. So if I spin around, you'd have hi-hats, you'd have your snare drum, and you'd have a bass drum pedal which would connect to your cajon, which is what you'd be sat on, and you'd be able to play your grooves. Play any bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat combinations on that, and that would be a brilliant way to practice. So I think that's Evie inside there in it, yeah. So Evie, that would be a really, really good way of practicing. And then on top of that, if you've got that there, you could then pick up, so if you wanted to add toms to that kit, and if it was solely for practicing, you could pick up maybe 3 or so of the really, really small pads. So similar to what we will have used in our taster lesson, it seems a long time ago now, back in September, we had really, really small pads to start with before we moved to our new ones, which are the big ones. So you can get little practice pads, like 6 or 7 inch practice pads. You could get maybe 3 of those, and they're less than a tenner each. I think they're maybe about 8 or 9 quid each. And you'd be able to get 3 of those and mount those, to put that practice kit together for not a lot of money at all, which is a really, really good option if you already have parts of it like that. With practice options as well, so I did want to talk about practice pads, because I've mentioned this one before. It's just got a bit brighter so you can see that. So I've mentioned this one before. This one I have owned for the last 10 years or so. So once you have one, you don't really need to get another one. They're going to last you. So this is like an Evans drumhead made one. So Evans drumhead make these, they're HQ real feel ones. So this is the 12-inch pad. So you can get a cheaper option for these, because I think these ones are about 30, 35 quid. I think I was having a look earlier on, and if you go onto Graham Russell Drums at the minute, which is a drum shop just in Portsmouth. So if you check on Graham Russell's, I think they're on sale at the minute. They're about £30 or something like that. So that's perfect other than that. But the 12-inch one is what I'm recommending to all students. So you can get those little 6 or 7-inch ones, which I just mentioned. You could use with a snare drum, hi-hats to create pads, to create toms, sorry, using the pads, and that would be really, really helpful. But if you can pick up a 12-inch one, it's going to help, because even if you just have that, you can split it into the 4 sections like I've got there, with snare drum, high tom, mid tom, floor tom, and you can work your way around it. So snare drum, high tom, mid tom, floor tom, and you can work your way around that like you would work your way around a drum kit, and you can use the edges of it for cymbals, ride cymbal, crash cymbal, things like that. So 12-inch is going to be your best bet. So you can spend, like I say, £30 for an Evans one. I think Stag do them, which is what we use in our lessons in most schools. We use the Stag ones, and they're maybe like a £10, £15. So those are a cheaper option again, but you can spend upwards of £30 but I wouldn't say that you really need to. A nice Evans HQ real feel one will last you forever, really, as long as you look after it. Another thing, I'm getting more and more questions again about electric kits, acoustic kits, practice kits. What is the best option? So like I said, it depends on your budget, really. So I would always say acoustic kit. So what I have set up here, if I move these out of the way, I'll give you another reminder of what I've got set up here. So if I move back slightly, you'll be able to see we've got floor tom, we've got a high tom here. We would have a mid tom, but I'd take the mid tom off, just preference. So I've got real bass drum toms and a real snare drum. My snare drum's got my practice pad on the top. So even when I'm talking, my talking is louder than my practice pad. And for my toms, I've got mesh heads on there. So it's an acoustic drum kit, but with mesh heads on. And it's not very loud at all. Even the bass drum down there, which you would expect to be really, really loud, is not very loud at all. So So that's a really good option. It gives you an option for if you want to switch between a quiet practice kit, which is what we have set up here with mesh heads, and you wanted a real kit as well. All you have to do is take the heads off of these and just swap them out. You can put mesh heads on a real kit, real heads on a kit with mesh heads, and you're going to get those two different options there. So I would recommend this first over anything else, because you can buy a very, very, very cheap kit with mesh heads on, and it's going to do a better job than a very, very cheap electric kit. And that's the point that I'm getting to. With electric kits, you kind of need to spend a minimum before you get to something good. So I was speaking to one of the parents earlier. Electric kits, kind of once you're dipping underneath like £300, your electric kits are limiting. So you've got no dynamics in there. So we talk about dynamics in our lessons, and hopefully you'll all remember what dynamics are, but dynamics are how soft or how hard you hit something. So quietly like this, or loudly. So that's our dynamics there. With an electric kit, if you've got a cheaper electric kit, when you hit a pad this hard, you're going to get one sound. If you hit it this hard, you're going to get exactly the same sound. And that's what we want to try and stay away from when we're getting practice kits, electric kits, is we want something that's going to be helping us along. Because if we're plugged into a kit that's making us sound amazing, if we jumped across onto an acoustic kit, we might play it exactly the same way, but we might be really quiet with one of our hands for half of the bar and really loud with it for the second half of the bar. And that's how we've been practicing it on our electric kit, and it sounds perfect, it sounds flawless. But when we move it over, our dynamics are all off, and we want to get used to how loud we're hitting things. So like on here, I've got these low volume cymbals, which whilst I'm talking again, they're not very loud at all, but these are going to help with our dynamics, because you can play them as quietly or as loudly as you need to. But with an electric kit, it just triggers that sound off. Once you get above the kind of £300 bracket, this is talking like second hand really, because buying new, you're going to need to push that up again. But value for money, have a look at second-hand options. But once you get above that, maybe £300 option is when your electric kits start getting really, really good and a great practice option. But definitely, if you have the option, acoustic drums always. Even if you do have to mesh heads, quiet cymbals, that kind of thing. Like these are the Zildjian ones, but a few different companies make them. So Zildjian and Sabian, I believe, make some, but you can get some off of Terman, which are Millennium branded, I believe, and they're maybe a fraction of the price of what these ones are, but do the same job. So that's a really, really good option for practice kits. But definitely, like I said, we all want to be at the point where we've got some sticks in our hands on a bi-daily basis, really. We want to be trying to have some sticks in our hands every day if possible, and just work through a few exercises, even if it's just a pad. You don't have your stand, but you've got it on your legs. And we get used to having sticks in our hands, get used to all of our technique. Like I said before, even if you've just got sticks, no pad, spin the stick around against there, get used to that finger motion there. That is one of the most important exercises we can be working on right now, just to get us used to using our hands like that. And that'll transfer over onto the pad like that. So, any questions at all? Just pop them in the side for me. I'm going to give you a minute or two to have a think. Maybe it's something regarding the lessons that I sent out to you on Monday. So you should have all got your new lot of content Monday. Should have been working on that already. You do have a long time left this week, so hopefully you've got some questions to ask about it. Maybe you've reached a certain tempo with it and you want advice on where to go next. Or maybe you are done with all of the content already and you kind of want some suggestions on what you can be doing with it next. Just have a think, pop some questions in the side for me. I'm going to give you a minute to have a think and then we'll carry on. So for a minute, I'm going to show you this kit that I've got set up here, give you a play so you can hear it. This is, like I said, a full acoustic kit with our quiet cymbals on, which is a great practice option if this is something you're looking at. So there's a question on the side, Evie again. So is there a minimum budget for an acoustic drum kit? So easy answer, no, there is no budget for, like, no minimum budget for an acoustic drum kit. So if you're really, really lucky and if you've got a lot of time to be having a look around, often you'll find parts of kits or little bits here and there for free or not a lot of money. So the bass drum that I've got down here, which is part of my practice kit, is an old Olympic bass drum from the 60s. And I picked this up for free because it was very, very dusty and a little bit rusty, and they were giving it away. So I picked this up and I spent a little bit of time cleaning it and fixing a couple of bits, but that was a free bass drum. I used to have some toms to match it as well, which I managed to find somewhere else entirely for free. And I used to have an entire kit made out of free bits that I just found here and there, different secondhand shops, like cash converters, those kind of things, like charity shops, things like that. You can often find a lot of stuff, especially snare drums. Snare drums are a funny one, and bass drums are a funny one. You often find a lot of those just kicking about in random places. So you can definitely build a kit with absolutely no budget. Cymbals is where it becomes difficult. Cymbals, when you're spending not a lot of money on cymbals, it's obvious that you've not spent a lot of money on cymbals, because cheap cymbals sound cheap. I would definitely recommend, whatever your budget is, second-hand for a drum kit. I'd say look around about £100 is a good starting point if you just want to buy everything in one go. But if you're willing to have a look around, spend £5 or £10 for a bass drum and £5 or £10 for another tom, maybe you find a snare drum for 20 quid and you get a pack of cheap cymbals for 25 quid off of eBay, and you put all that together, you can save yourself a little bit of money there. But if you're looking for a whole kit all in one go from the same person, you're looking £100 minimum, really. I wouldn't go under that. That's when you're going to have more problems than it's worth. You'll have more things breaking and more things you have to fix, and then you'll end up spending more money on it than it's really worth. Trust me, I did it with my first kit. I had lugs falling off, which is these things down here, which is what your tension bolt goes into. So you have the hoop of your drum, and then a tension bolt goes through the hoop of your drum, which holds the drum head on and into the lug. And the lugs here, you have to tighten that screw into, and that's what tightens your drum head up. And if this hardware here was attached to this snare drum or tom or bass drum, if that's very, very cheap and the metal's very, very cheap, those will break very, very easily. And I had that with my first kit. I paid 70 quid for it out of the newspaper from a guy that lived like 2 streets away. And I went and got it. And within a few weeks, I was using it so much that bits just started breaking, falling off. And within a couple of weeks, I needed another one again. So I'd stick above that £100 kind of barrier just to just to help yourself out. But like I said, you can pick things up free or very, very cheap. Often parts of kits are going to be less or better value because they don't have the rest of it with it, and you're going to have to spend that time to find it. Now is a good time, whilst you've got some time on your hands, to have a look for bits of kits. But yeah, £100 upwards. I'd say like a lot of you are actually getting to your sort of grade 1, like you're kind of ready to sit your grade 1 about this time now. The majority of you that are in this live stream now are kind of reaching that point. So I'd be looking at it seriously. Maybe it's something that you want, like you might want your family to kind of invest in, and just speak to them a little bit. Let them know how dedicated you are and how motivated you are to playing, and they might be able to help you out a little bit, I'm sure. But like I say, brilliant, start looking now. So like I said, if you do find anything and you're not sure, I did pop an email in the side there, which is the schools@themusicworks.co email address. You can pop any questions over to that and they get redirected to me. And I'll be able to see any links, anything that you might have found that you might have questions about. If you're looking at electric kits and you may be stuck between a couple, or say you have a budget and you've got a higher budget than usual, or a higher budget than what I've been talking about today. So maybe you're talking the £300, £400, £500 kind of range. That's when it can get really, really confusing, because you're not quite sure what you're doing for the best, whether this company is any better than this company, or do I need this, or do I need these extras? Is it going to be worth the extra money? So just fire those questions over to me and I'll be able to answer all of those to you. The best thing to do, I say, is invest in good heads. So if you do have a kit at the moment, just kind of a cheapish kit, or maybe a second-hand one, someone's handed one down to you, or you've got one from somewhere, and it's not the best sounding kit, but it's good enough for now. What I'd say is invest in good drum heads. So drum heads are the bit that you actually hit, so the plastic bit that you actually hit with the stick. So if I take the practice pad off there, this part here is your actual drum head. And I would say to invest in those if you do have a kit already. Make sure you're getting the right sizes for your drums. Again, I use Evans drum heads on my actual kit. You'll have seen those in all the videos that I send out. I'm using Evans drum heads. 2-ply is probably best for you right now because those will last the longest, but nice heads will make a cheap drum kit sound really, really good for not a lot of money. And sometimes that's all the kit can need. Sometimes it might seem a bit run down and seem like it might need replacing, but a change of heads and a little bit of a TLC will really, really bring it back to life. So that's an option as well. So if any of you have any questions about stuff like that, say you've got a kit already and you just need a bit of help as to how you can make it better or more suited, I can answer all those as well. So I'll give another minute because we're at half an hour now. So I'll give another minute, see if anyone's got any questions about any of the content at all. And then I'll get those answered for you. I'm just going to check, see if there was anything I wanted to mention. So I'm just checking what lessons I sent out for you all last week. So a few of you were looking at song 5 last week from our blue book. Where did I put that? Over this side. So quite a few of you were looking at song 5 here, which you'll know is this one. Hopefully it's the right way around on your screen, hopefully not backwards. But that's song 5 there. Hopefully you've all been working on that one, those of you that got sent that out. So you're either at the point where you're looking at the first 8 bars of it, and you're looking at that first 8-bar cycle, or maybe you're moving on to the B section of that. So that song there is our grade 1 piece. One of the grade 1 pieces, that is. There's a few different elements to grade 1, but that is one of the grade 1 pieces. So that's one that we want to be learning and we want to get down really, really well, because that'll really, really help us out. So it might be now that we don't actually end up putting any of you in for grade 1, those of you that are ready, because we don't know when the next lot of exams is going to be because of all of this that's going on at the minute. We did have some scheduled for March, which got postponed, but now we're not actually sure when those are going to be put back until. So we'll just keep going with that. But that, if you are working on that, make sure that you're paying extra special attention to that, because it might be that we do end up putting you in for grade 1 exams, and that will be part of it. So good question inside. We don't have the books to learn from. Do we definitely need them? And if so, where do we buy? So that's for Noah there, isn't it? So you don't definitely need them. So I'll remind you again, I did mention in the start of here that it is these 2 books here, mainly the blue one, our Drums 1 book. We've got a Drum Fundamentals one as well, which Drum Fundamentals is all single line exercises that works from beginner all the way to stuff that I can still be working on now. But that Drums 1 book is going to take you from debut, so our taster lesson we had in September, and that'll take you all the way through until about grade 3 kind of standard, that grade 1. That Drums 1 book there. So it's an investment, definitely. It's not that there's a book for every grade and you're going to have to buy a book every couple of terms and it's going to cost a fortune. It's 1 book for every few grades. So we have 3 of those in total that take you up to grade 8, which is the end of the grading system. So 3 books across 8 grades. It is worth the investment to have that in front of you, and it means you can take a really, really quick look back at something as well. So maybe you're working through one of the pieces, like, so I mentioned song 5, so I'm just going to give myself a refresher quickly as to what lesson Noah got last. So Noah is there, section B. Yeah, so Noah, you've been working through song 5, which is this one here, which I just showed. And this here is going to be way easier to read than all of the notation that I put onto the videos. So it's not necessary, because I do try and make it as easy as possible to follow along during the videos, and try and put as much notation in there as possible without covering everything that I'm doing, because it's as important for you to see what I'm doing as it is to hear it and look at the notation. So it's a hard thing to balance, how much notation's put in, how much of me to cover up, how much of my technique to cover up whilst I'm doing it. But we do try and balance it so that you can follow the video through without the book in front of you. But definitely, if you can pick these up, do. I can't remember off the top of my head how much we charge for them. I don't want to say in case I get it wrong. But it's not a lot of money, and it's worth picking up. It'll carry, so Noah asking the question at the bottom, it'll carry you through for the next at least year, maybe a little bit longer, as long as we carry on through the content as strongly as you've been carrying on through the content. It should hold you up for the next year at least. So where do you buy them? I've popped an email just up in the comments if you have a scroll up, because they've moved up now, but it's the schools@themusicworks.co email address. If you just send an email over to that, yeah, so you can just send us an email over to that email address there to get the books, and we'll be able to arrange that with you. We do have a collection of them still. We managed to get a hold of a lot of them before everything locked down, just so that if things like this do happen and we get stuck with this for quite a lot of time, we can still send the books out to you and you can still get them. So just pop us an email over and we'll get back to you as soon as possible, and we'll be able to get those books out to you. Same goes for anyone else as well. If any of you do want books, or even if you're just thinking about it and you want to know how much they are, just pop an email over. No problem, thank you. So I'll give another minute or two, have a think. Any questions about any of the content, just pop them in the side. I'm going to give myself a refresher again, what I've sent out, because I've been going through all of your lessons today for next week, been putting all those lesson videos together. So let me give myself a refresher of what got sent out last week. So those of you that are relatively new to me, you'll have got a lesson about using crash cymbals. So this one on your left-hand side here. So that's the quiet one, but it's usually a lot louder than that. So you'll have got a lesson on using crash cymbals, which is this one on your left-hand side here. And if you don't have a practice pad to be using, if you don't have a practice kit, electric kit or an acoustic kit to be using, it can be quite a difficult thing to be practicing that movement, because the movement we want to be practicing is moving your right hand from here on your hi-hats over to your crash cymbal over here. And with that 8-beat groove, we want to be practicing that movement there with our right hand and making sure that our hits stay as even as they do if we just play on our hi-hats. Because if we're playing our 8-beat groove on our hi-hats, that right hand doesn't change at all. It's just evenly spaced notes. And what we want to get used to is moving our right hand from our crash cymbal over here to our hi-hats over here without losing those consistent notes and the same evenly spaced notes. So even if you don't have a practice kit or acoustic kit or anything to be playing that on, practice pads do work, where we were looking at putting our right hand in the top corner here for our hi-hats and then moving the crash cymbal to the top of the pad. And trying to keep those notes as consistent as possible. But you can use any surface at all. So maybe if you're using your legs, you'd have your right hand over here and move it over to your right leg. And try and get that jump between legs without moving the gap between the notes. So your gap wants to stay exactly the same. And then try and move it over without losing any space, like that. So that's a good way of looking at that one. And I know some of the more advanced ones of you in this group will have looked at some different bass drum combinations with your right hand part. That's a nice lesson for practicing at home without any sticks, without any practice kits or anything like that, because you've got your right leg, which you can have on the floor, and you've got your right hand on your leg, and we wasn't using our left hand at all. So it was all groove based with the right side of our body. So that's a really nice, easy one to practice without a practice kit or anything like that. But if you do have a practice kit or acoustic kit, whatever, and you do have a pedal, make sure you're working on that bass drum technique as well as possible. It's a really difficult one to show here, but I will be doing a lesson probably not next week, but the week after for you to take a look at, which will be looking at some bass drum technique, because a lot of you are still in the phase of lifting your whole leg right up to play a bass drum. And what we want to avoid is doing that, and we want to try and keep the ball of our foot on the floor as much as possible and just drop our heel down to get that bass drum strike. So that's a good one to be practicing as well if you do have your pedal and you do have a kit to be looking at. So any more questions at all? I'm going to give another second. I'm just going to play for a minute, give you a minute to think of anything that you might not have thought of, and then if not, I'll end the stream now. So any more questions at all, let me know. Just pop them in the side for me. If not, I'll give it another 20 seconds and then we'll leave it there. No, doesn't look like it. So I'll be doing another one of these this time next week again. You'll be getting another load of lessons out on Monday. Like I said, parents expect that little reading recap as well for students and for parents to take a look at, which will help you all along. It'll help parents to have a look at what we're doing in the lessons and maybe talk it through and ask a couple of questions. Maybe have them ask you a couple of questions to answer as well. It'll really help everyone along in terms of reading notation and just understanding what we're covering in those lessons. So until then, guys, enjoy, get practicing through all of the content that I sent out a couple of days ago and get ready for Monday again. Thank you very much.